The project for today is building these sliding barn door style shutters for the windows that I have in my office. As you can see in the reflection in the window, I've got a big sound system in the room. So these barn doors are meant to help keep some of the sound in the room and not disturb my neighbors. So the base of these shutters starts off with 3/4 inch plywood, and then I'm using this mass loaded vinyl. So this stuff is about 120 pounds for a 15-foot by 4-foot roll. So this mass loaded vinyl is something like 50 pounds for a 3 by 4 piece. On the top of the mass loaded vinyl, then I have some carpet padding that I have left over from when I finished the office space. And on top of that, some styrofoam. And then on the final exterior surface, I have some different panels that are meant for sound deflection. So the process of putting together these shutters starts off with building a frame that wraps around the 3/4 inch plywood. So I started off by building these dado slots into these 2x4s that I was using as the frame around the pieces of plywood. So starting to put all that stuff together here. Part of what I was trying to accomplish was making sure that I had enough depth that I was able to put all of these various layers of material. My intention, however sound or unsound it was to start with the densest material closest to the outside and then have varying layers of density as we went into the inside of the room. One of the goals for the upstairs space is to try to keep as much sound in as possible. Since I have a sound system up there, I didn't want to disturb my neighbors. So as I was finishing the space, the first thing that we did was spray insulation all throughout the space. Once we had the space spray insulated, then we used 5/8 inch drywall on all of the walls. The wall that these barn shutters were going to be hanging on has the biggest opening of the space. There are two casement windows on that wall that measure about 6 feet wide and 5 feet high. So in order to try to prevent sound from going out that space, not only was I using these barn doors, but also did double drywall on that wall. And in between those two layers of drywall, I used green sound deadening glue. I also used this same green sound deadening glue on the floor. Initially, there was a 3/4 inch plywood floor throughout the space, and it was an unfinished space without any drywall or insulation upstairs. I put this green glue all over the floor and then laid a 1/4 inch underlayment on top of it so that there was a bit of a break between the 3/4 inch floor that was already there and the surface that I actually put the carpet on. So back to the build here, you can see I cut those dado channels into these 2x4s and was using that to create a frame around the 3/4 inch plywood. Slowly getting all that stuff put together, and as soon as I had that all together, I was able to actually start cutting and fitting all the materials that were going to go on the inside of the frames. So with the frames all put together, it was time to start working on all of the sound deadening materials. This mass-loaded vinyl is surprisingly heavy. Even lugging that roll around that's over there laying against the wall, it's quite heavy. So I was also had to figure out ways to cut this, the best way to sort of get it to size. I was trying these tin snip shears that I have here, and also just using a regular box cutter. That worked pretty good together. The mass-loaded vinyl I got online, and as I mentioned before, the carpet padding was something that I had left over from finishing upstairs, and the styrofoam was something that I was just able to pick up at a big box store in the area. So all of these materials were pretty easily sourceable. The final panels that I used to cover the far exterior surface that has the sort of geometric designs and such, found those online on Amazon. So right now I'm doing the initial fitment and such. Once I was actually done getting everything together and kind of making sure that it all worked together the way I wanted it to, I actually used some PL glue to attach the mass-loaded vinyl to the plywood, and used a combination of staples and that sort of thing to keep all the rest of this styrofoam and foam padding in the frame. So once these were all put together, I painted the exposed wood with Duratex, which is a type of paint that's good for speakers. It's really durable. And then I put some foil-backed styrofoam on the side of these that would face the outside to kind of help keep the UV rays out of the room. You can see here that I mounted a piece of oak to the header. I had been very careful with where I mounted that so that it was well attached to the structure of the room. I had to lift these into place with a car jack because of the weight of each one of them. And of course, I was doing it by myself. You can see here that this is what the final product looked like once they were all together. I found that it was a bit difficult to cut this final sound reflections material. It was kind of a plastic material and had a tendency to sort of chip and shatter when I cut it on the table saw, but I found that if I went slow enough, it would work okay. But just something to watch out for if you're using these panels and you want to cut them to size. It is a bit difficult, and they do tend to sort of want to shatter. The barn door hardware worked out pretty good. I was really pleased with the way that that all was able to support the weight, and these seem to do a good job of keeping the sound in the room. In general, I like the way that they look also. They have a nice way of reflecting light when you cast different colors of light on them. You'll see at the end of this clip here, I tend to use some different LED lights in the space, and these really have a nice look depending on what you're casting on them.